The predator was dying. It lay on the cold, reinforced metal table of MedBay 4, its black and crimson scales dulled to a sickly matte. Tubes ran from its arms, if those massive limbs could be called that, into diagnostic ports pulsing weakly with light. 6 monitors flashed alien vitals in a language only one being on the ship could fully read. And even he had walked away. Dr. Selen, Chief Medical Officer of the Galactic Coalition vessel Tavrix, stood at the edge of the bay with his upper arms crossed and his lower ones twitching at his sides. His long, silvered head inclined slightly toward the prone form on the table, though his eyes had already given up. "It will not survive," he said flatly. "The internal bleeding is extensive. Organ collapse is accelerating. Even if I regenerate the tissue, the nervous system is fragmenting. We lack the species-specific data to proceed." Captain Yarla, a towering moss-green Falnari, shifted uneasily beside him. "You're saying it's beyond saving?" Yes. The predator, classified as a Yilgar, had been captured 2 days prior during a skirmish on the edge of Coalition space. It had torn through 2 decks of security drones before finally being subdued by a containment field. The effort had cost the ship a ruptured gravity cell and 3 injured crew. And now, despite the damage it had caused, they were trying to keep it alive, or had been. Selen turned from the table, already issuing disengagement commands to the med suite. Then a voice cut through the sterile hum of the room. "Let me try." Selen froze. Yarla turned, blinking her 3 eyes toward the doorway. There, just inside the threshold, stood a man-human wearing a stained brown jacket over a regulation medical smock. He held a worn leather case and a cup of something steaming that smelled faintly of cinnamon and engine grease. The man set the cup on a counter and walked forward, his boots clinking softly on the tile. Selen's tone was diplomatic but strained. "Andrew Lasker, you are not authorized for primary trauma cases involving non-coalition species." Andrew didn't slow. "I'm not coalition, I'm a civilian vet. Contracted to assist with biological classification and emergency animal care, which that," he nodded toward the predator, "definitely qualifies as." Yarla tilted her head. "It nearly killed 5 of my crew. And it's dying now," Andrew said, setting his case on the table beside the predator. "You want answers, right? What species it is, what it was doing in your sector, how it survived on a planet with no oxygen? You'll get none of that if it flatlines." Selen's limbs twitched again, this time in impatience. "Even if I permitted this, what do you hope to accomplish that I could not?" Andrew opened his case, revealing a series of familiar yet oddly modified tools: scalpels, syringes, a portable ultrasound, a roll of duct tape. "I've worked with Camarian sandcats that could survive full organ shutdown for 40 minutes. I've reset bones on a Saturnian cliff bear with a 2-inch thick hide. This thing breathes, bleeds, and has a pulse. That's enough for me to try." Yarla said nothing. Selen hesitated, then finally gestured to the console. "The systems are yours, but when it expires, the responsibility is yours as well." Andrew nodded once. "Fair enough." He rolled up his sleeves and got to work. The predator's chest rose and fell erratically, wheezing through gills that pulsed beneath its neck folds. Andrew reached for the scanner and ran it over the creature's torso, muttering, "Rib fracture here, bleeding into the cavity. Okay, that's a problem." He didn't notice Selen watching him from the corner, expression unreadable. Andrew opened a sterile packet and pulled out a long needle. "No idea what this coagulation agent will do to a Yilgar, but better than letting it bleed out." He injected carefully, then reached for the ultrasound. The wound cavity showed pressure dropping. "Still alive," he muttered. He moved to the leg. One of them had been shattered, likely during the takedown, and twisted at an unnatural angle. He examined the joint, pressed lightly, then pulled out a brace from his kit. It was meant for a Terran wolf, but he adjusted the straps with a screwdriver. As he worked, the predator's head twitched. Andrew froze. Its eyes opened. It didn't growl. Didn't snap. It just stared at him, bleeding, broken, and barely breathing but aware. "Yeah, you're not done yet." Andrew whispered. Good, stay with me. He worked for another hour. Sutured the gash along the abdomen, drained fluid from the lungs, reinforced the spine with an improvised support coupling from a broken drone arm he found in storage. Nothing elegant. Nothing permanent. But enough to keep the thing from slipping away. When he finally stepped back, drenched in sweat, the monitors had stabilized, heart rate steady. Blood pressure climbing. Neural activity chaotic but present. Selin approached, silent for a long time. You shouldn't have succeeded. Andrew leaned against the counter, wiping his forehead. Yeah, well, I wasn't planning on failing. Yarla stared at the predator, then at Andrew. You'll monitor it? Every hour, he said. I'll sleep in here if I have to. Selin made a sound that might have been disbelief. What exactly do you intend to do if it wakes and attacks? Andrew looked at the predator, which blinked once, slowly. I don't think it will. The next 48 hours were hell. The predator's vitals spiked and crashed with no warning. Andrew slept in snatches, eating from vacuum-sealed ration packs while jotting notes in a leather-bound book. Selin visited once a day, offering no words, only scanning the data before leaving again. Andrew ran tests, took tissue samples. Scanned brain activity. The creature's biology was a nightmare: redundant organs, hybridized DNA strands that looked like someone had taken a lion, a crocodile, and a squid and forced them into a single template. Its blood was thick and laced with microscopic metallic particles. Its bones were laced with carbon weaves. Nothing about it made sense. Still, he learned when the predator stirred on the third day, Andrew was ready. It groaned a deep, resonating sound of pain. Then it turned its massive head toward him and growled low. Andrew didn't flinch. He stepped forward slowly, hands visible. You're in a medbay. You were dying. I fixed you. The creature's eyes narrowed. Andrew pointed at its leg. Fractures stabilized. You'll need to stay off it a while. I reinforced the spine, but it's temporary. You shouldn't move too fast. The predator's nostrils flared, and it growled something guttural. Andrew blinked. I don't speak whatever that is. Just nod if you understand me. The predator didn't nod, but it didn't lunge either. Andrew took that as a win. Word spread fast through the ship. The human vet had saved the predator. The same predator that had nearly torn through Deck 7. Some crew avoided Medbay 4 entirely. Others visited quietly, peering through the glass, whispering. Andrew ignored them all. He was too busy trying to teach the predator how to drink nutrient slurry through a straw. It was on the 5th day that Captain Yarla returned. I have questions, she said. Andrew sighed and set down the feeding tube. That makes 2 of us. Does it understand you? I think so. It doesn't try to eat me, so that's progress. She studied the creature. Why do you care? This isn't your war. You're not even military. Andrew hesitated, then pulled a small photo from his pocket. It was worn, creased at the edges. A young boy, maybe 6, grinning beside a massive, shaggy animal with wings. My son. He used to sneak animals into our backyard. Injured birds, stray dogs, once a 3-legged iguana. He'd cry if I told him we couldn't help, so I learned. I fixed what I could. For him, Yarla studied the photo, then the man holding it. And now I do it for the ones who don't have someone to fight for them. She didn't reply, but when she left, she ordered an extra trauma monitor installed in the bay. It was on the 7th night when the predator stood unaided. Andrew woke to a soft thud and sat bolt upright. The predator was upright, leaning on the reinforced wall, chest heaving slowly. Its leg brace held. The spine support creaked ominously but held. Andrew stood too, cautiously. Easy. You're not ready for the predator raised a clawed finger, then pointed at its chest. Andrew frowned. You want to show me something? It pressed the claw against its chest again, then drew a shape in the air, a spiral. Andrew froze. He knew that shape. It was the insignia of a long-extinct alien faction, one that had vanished over 200 years ago in a war no one talked about. I don't understand, he said slowly. The predator growled again, this time softer. Then it slumped back into the bed, exhausted. Andrew stared at the spiral it had drawn. Something told him this thing wasn't just a soldier. It was a message. and he was the only one who could read it. The predator was awake again by early afternoon. Andrew noticed it when the fluid pump stopped halfway through a cycle. The creature had unplugged the line from its forearm not violently, but with slow, deliberate precision, as if testing what it could get away with. It sat propped against the back wall now, one leg outstretched, the other bent awkwardly beneath it. The brace still held, though the elastic bands were starting to fray along the edges. "You're not supposed to be up yet," Andrew said, crossing the room with a gauze roll in one hand and a shallow bowl of something resembling mashed lentils in the other. "You tear any sutures and I'm not fixing you twice." The predator didn't move. Its gaze followed him, but the rest of its body remained still as if conserving energy. Andrew crouched beside it and set the bowl down within reach. Food, not poisoned. "Smells like burnt kelp because that's exactly what it is. Try it or don't, but I'm not spoon-feeding a 7-foot apex scavenger." The creature turned its head a few degrees and let out a low exhale. It wasn't a growl or a sigh, more like the sound a rusted hinge might make if it was trying to express disapproval. Andrew leaned back on his heels and scratched behind his ear. "Right, communication. Let's revisit that spiral you drew. You didn't just doodle it for fun, did you?" No reaction. "I did some digging," he went on. "Coalition databases haven't got much. Symbol matches up with some very old navigation beacons, pre-expansion era. One theory says it marked safe passages through gravitational eddies. Another claims it was a warning. The kind of sign you leave behind when you know something worse is coming." The creature raised its head slightly, eyelids tightening. "Thought that might get your attention. So, you're not just some lost predator who stumbled into our backyard. You've got context." Still no reply. But the muscles along its jawline twitched. Andrew stood and walked to the monitor, checking the vitals. The neural readings were climbing again, not dangerously, but steadily. He tapped the display and narrowed his eyes. "You're still running hot. Could be inflammation, or maybe your people just have a metabolism that doesn't know when to quit. Either way, you need to cool down." He turned toward the storage locker, rummaged through a bin of old equipment, and pulled out a portable cryo pack. "This is gonna feel like someone dropped a glacier on your spine, but you'll thank me in an hour." He attached the pack to the support brace and clicked it on. The reaction was immediate. The predator jerked, let out a sharp, almost metallic rasp, then shuddered and went still again. Andrew didn't apologize. By the time evening cycle dimmed the MedBay lights, the creature had finished the kelp paste and was sniffing at the feeding tube with what Andrew interpreted as cautious interest. Maybe hunger had finally won out over pride. He was halfway through updating the health log when the door hissed open and someone stepped inside. It wasn't Celan. The visitor was tall and angular, draped in a cloak that shimmered faintly like heated glass. Her face was long and ridged, skin a smooth lavender shade with eyes that shifted color every few seconds. A tenebril, rare even out here. Andrew didn't look up from his pad. "If you're here to throw protocol at me, get in line." "I'm not here to stop you," she said, voice light and clipped. "I'm here because your patient just triggered a Class 8 security flag." Andrew set the pad down. "What kind of flag?" "Species lockout. Unrecognized genetic code with embedded encryption markers." "It's not just alive, it's carrying something." He turned toward the predator, who now watched the tenebril with sharp, unreadable stillness. "You're saying it's a courier?" "I'm saying it might be a vault," she corrected. "Biological storage, possibly data. Possibly something worse." Andrew exhaled through his nose. "And what's the coalition plan? Dissect it until you find the key." Her eyes flicked gold for a moment. "That depends on whether you can get it to talk." He stepped between her and the med table. "It's not a machine. It's injured, confused, and probably terrified. You want answers. Try asking without a scalpel." She studied him for a long second, then turned and left without another word. Andrew made a mental note to lock the bay from the inside during sleep cycle. By the next morning, the predator had done something he hadn't expected. It started mimicking sounds. Not words, not yet. But when Andrew powered on the fluid warmer, the creature let out a high-pitched chuff that matched the tone. When he checked the oxygen mix, it clicked its teeth in a rhythm that matched the monitor's pulse tone. Andrew leaned against the wall and crossed his arms. "You're learning, probably always were, just didn't want us to know." The predator blinked once. "Let's try something," Andrew said, walking over to a shelf and pulling down a small whiteboard. He drew a line, then a circle. "Line, circle, you can do this." He held out the marker. The predator stared at it. "Come on, you've got claws like jackhammers. Figure it out." After a moment, the creature reached out with a single digit and very gently took the marker. It pressed it to the board and scratched out a crude spiral. Andrew felt his stomach dip. Same symbol again. "That's not random. That's a code." The predator handed the marker back and tapped the spiral, then it pointed at Andrew, and then, for the first time, it spoke. A single word. Garbled, heavy but unmistakable. "Key." Andrew stepped back, eyebrows raised. "You think I'm the key?" The predator didn't answer. It just rested its head against the wall and closed its eyes. Andrew didn't sleep that night. By the fourth day since the creature had awoken, new problems arrived. Captain Yarla summoned him to Briefing Room 3, a place Andrew had never been invited before. The walls were lined with rotating star maps and surveillance logs. A group of officers stood in a loose semicircle around a three-dimensional projection of the predator's spiral. Yarla gestured toward it. This appeared in Sector Delta 7, carved into the side of an abandoned mining rig. Same symbol, same orientation. Andrew folded his arms. "So it's a pattern now." "Not just that," Yarla said. "It was emitting a faint signal, ultrasonic. We isolated the frequency and filtered it." She tapped a control panel and the room filled with a looping tone, fast, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. Andrew tilted his head. "That's not communication, that's a countdown." The officers exchanged looks. Yarla didn't blink. "That's what we think too." Andrew stared at the projection. "Then whatever's inside that thing in MedBay 4 isn't just data, it's a trigger." Yarla nodded once. "Which is why we've been ordered to transfer it to cold deck custody by end of cycle." Andrew's voice dropped. "You mean the stasis vaults? You're going to freeze it. It's protocol. You'll kill it. It's not a sanctioned coalition species. It's intelligent." Yarla's eyes didn't waver. "Intelligence isn't the metric we use when the risk is planetary." Andrew turned on his heel and left without asking permission. Back in MedBay 4, the predator was awake again. It looked at him, then at the ceiling, then back. Andrew sat down hard on the nearest stool. "They're moving you. Freezing you, probably indefinitely." The creature didn't react. "I don't know what you're carrying. I don't know what that signal means, but I need you to tell me something. Anything. Give me a reason to stop this." A pause. Then the predator drew the spiral again. But this time it added something new, a small dot at the center. Andrew stared at it. "That's not just a symbol," he whispered. "It's a map." The predator tapped the dot, then it tapped Andrew's chest, and then very softly it said a second word, "Awaken." Andrew stood, heart pounding. If he was reading this right, the creature wasn't just a vault. It was a beacon, and it had come here looking for him. Andrew didn't shower. He barely paused to wash the dried plasma off his forearms before sealing the medbay from the inside and switching the lights to rest mode. The predator, still unnamed, still watching, lay on its side again, propped up by a pair of bolsters he'd rigged from medical foam and cargo straps. The spiral symbol and its new centerpiece still glowed faintly on the whiteboard. "You meant Earth," he muttered, rubbing his temples. "You pointed at me, then the spiral, then that dot. You weren't guessing, you knew." The creature didn't blink. It adjusted its arms slightly, claws curling inward, and waited. Outside, someone buzzed the door. Andrew ignored it. He reached behind the main console and yanked the power plug from the wall, cutting the alert chime mid-blip. The hum of the med equipment dropped to backup power, steady but lower, like the ship was holding its breath. "Okay," he said, crouching beside the cot. "Here's what I think. You were built or bred, or maybe you volunteered, who knows, but you were sent to find something. A species, a signal, maybe a person, and now you're saying it's me. Why? The predator's throat expanded slowly. It pointed again spiral center Andrew. Not your most helpful day, he muttered, then tapped the console screen, pulling up a blank diagnostic chart. Fine. Let's try something measurable. You've got implants in your skeletal structure, carbon lattice, probably reinforced. That kind of material doesn't evolve naturally. Someone did that to you. Maybe it's grafted, maybe it's printed. Either way, it wasn't cosmetic. He walked to the supply rack, grabbed the handheld scanner, and returned. If you're a vault, if you're storing something in your bones, I should see a density anomaly. The predator didn't move as he ran the scanner along its ribcage. The screen lit up with blue cross sections. Andrew frowned. Well, you are full of surprises, he said. Your marrow's been replaced. Not fully, just in the sternum and along the spine. That's where your density spikes, like you're carrying, not data, not a chip. Something biological, but not yours. He leaned back, still staring at the screen. You're a courier, not for information. For tissue. The predator's claws tapped the cot. Andrew looked up. You're carrying DNA. A pause. Then the predator exhaled slow, deliberate, and tapped the center of the spiral again, encoded into your bones. You've been walking around with a species blueprint inside you. Another buzz at the door. Ignored, Andrew stood. That's why the countdown. Someone out there expected you to deliver it by a specific time. Maybe they're waiting. Maybe they've already given up. He looked at the predator, really looked this time, the scars layered under its scales, the way its body had adapted to every treatment like it was used to rebuilding itself on the fly. Resilience wasn't just a feature, it was the design. You weren't just sent, he said. You were made to survive the journey no matter what, and you did. Barely. The predator watched him, still but alert. I'll tell you what I think. That dot in the spiral, that's not Earth. That's where this DNA belongs. And you were sent to find the closest compatible match, not just genetically, culturally, evolutionarily. Andrew pointed at himself. You weren't sent to bring DNA to us, you were sent to bring it through us. The lights flickered as backup power dipped. He ignored it. He walked to the freezer unit, opened the quarantine drawer, and removed a vial of synthesized growth medium. It was standard for tissue culture, meant to simulate multi-species environments. He held it up. I'm going to extract a bone sample, just a sliver, if I'm right. I'll be able to isolate the foreign DNA, see what it's meant to become. The predator didn't resist as he sterilized the drill and numbed the skin over the clavicle. The drill was quiet, designed for precision. The sample came out clean. Andrew placed it in the medium and slid the container into the incubator. Now we wait. 3 hours passed. He didn't sleep. He cleaned, monitored vitals, adjusted the patch on the predator's forearm where the Roman IV port had torn. At the 2-hour mark, he reheated a protein bar and ate half of it standing up. The growth medium turned cloudy at hour 3. Then pink. Then a faint shimmer of green lined the edges. Andrew opened the lid and pulled the sample out. Under the scope, the DNA was already replicating faster than any known cell type. But it wasn't chaotic. It was building something with structure, with intention. Not a virus, he said. Not a parasite. He adjusted the focus. A seed. He turned slowly toward the cot. You weren't carrying a message. You are the message. They didn't just send you with DNA. They sent you with instructions, biological blueprints, and they aimed you at us. The predator's body shifted, barely. A slow lift of its arm, palm up. Andrew took the gesture as agreement. He sat down again, feeling the weight of it settle over him like dust from a collapsed ceiling. If that's true, then you didn't fail your mission. You completed it the second I pulled that shard from your bone. You just needed someone who didn't give up. Another buzz at the door. This time a voice followed. Andrew, open the medbay now. Selin. Andrew walked to the door, tapped the comm panel. Not a good time. You've been in there for over a day. The captain wants a report. Andrew glanced at the predator. You'll get one, but not yet. Selin's voice was firmer. Protocol requires... I don't care about protocol, Andrew said. I'm not a soldier. I'm not even a proper doctor. I'm a guy who knows when something's trying to live, and this thing, it's trying to give us something. I'm not letting you freeze it before we understand what that is. Silence from the other side, then footsteps. Retreating, Andrew turned back to the predator who now sat upright, breathing steady. I think it's done growing, he said, lifting the vial. If I'm right, this is the last viable fragment of whatever species sent you. They're not extinct, not yet, but they're counting on us to bring them back. He walked to the storage unit, pulled out a stasis pod no bigger than a bread box, and placed the vial inside, sealed it. Activated the preservation field. You found the key, he said. Now we have the lock. The predator's claws clicked once against the cot frame. I'm going to submit the data, Andrew said. All of it, not through official channels, through independent archives, science coalitions. Xenogenetic forums, the ones not tied to military oversight. He packed up the whiteboard. The spiral had been marked, erased, and redrawn so many times the plastic surface was starting to warp. He glanced at the predator. You've done your part. The creature lay back again, finally letting its eyes close. Andrew sat beside it, setting the sealed vial gently on the desk next to him. I'll do mine.